Technology. Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert with the Ted Show. We are back. I'm a fan today. This young lady, I didn't grow up. I'm much older than her, but my kids grew up listening to her, Scott and Erica, especially on radio. She's an amazing human being. She's got her own podcast. She does a ton in the community, and we have been trying for weeks to try to get together and get you on the show. The one and only Erica Lee. Welcome to the show, Erica.
Well, thanks for having me, Ted.
I'm beyond excited. Truly, well, I mean what I said. I listened to you all forever. My kids grew up listening. I just think that you've made such a giant impact on the community. And anybody who doesn't know Erica hasn't been around long enough. So we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about storytelling, podcasting, and living your best life. But before we do that, some people don't know who you are. So give us a little background.
Well, I had a 30-plus year career in radio.
She was two, people.
Yeah.
She was two when she started.
Yes, I was. I was in my teens, my late teens. But yeah, I was always that kid that the first time I heard Top 40 radio when I was about 9, and I realized that was a job that people would pay you to talk and listen to music. And it's like, well, those are like, other than lunch, those are like my two favorite things. So, and then I transitioned to being the kid who copiously wrote down all 40 songs in American Top 40 when Casey Kasem did it for 4 hours on a Sunday.
I remember.
Yeah, and do chart movement. And so it seemed like radio was destined to be, until I realized it was only guys doing it. They hadn't let women take up the microphone yet. So
that's true. You didn't have a lot of what do they call them? Radio disc jockeys. You didn't have a lot of that.
They were all men with deep booming voices that would say things like WABC New York. And then when they finally did let the occasional female on, it was hi, I'm Misty, and you just heard Zeppelin, and coming up, it's the Floyds. And I was like, ew, no, I don't want to do that.
Her name had to be Misty, right?
Yeah,
it's Misty.
Or Stormy, yeah.
Or Stormy.
Which could transition to other professional names, but we'll just let that sit.
Absolutely, that's for another show, kids.
Yeah. But so my first teen jobs were in restaurants, and I really enjoyed that. I thought, well, okay, if the radio thing, if they're not going to let girls in, I'll do that. So I went off to Florida State, yay, Seminoles, and was majoring in hotel and restaurant administration until all of a sudden a station flipped formats and became a top 40. And they had a real live woman talking like a real live woman on. So I called her and I said,
did you really?
They're letting you talk on the radio. And she said, yeah, I've been reading the trade magazines, and this, if you've ever wanted to do it, this is the time to. So I went and got my 3rd-class license, which was just a little bit of studying. And right before I was about to take the test, they said, you don't have to take the test anymore. So it's like, oh,
nice.
I studied all this for nothing. And it's funny, the competition, she was working at a station called FM 99, WBGM in Tallahassee. And their competition, Gulf 104, pretty much fired the whole staff and were looking to reload. So I went and applied, and little Erica on the radio was born.
What was it like? Was it as dreamy and wonderful and amazing as you thought? Did you have any kind of learning curve when you went in? Because I think people look at this kind of stuff, right? Because we're face to face. You can see all of you can watch me have a cocktail. There's all sorts of things, but that is hidden. All you hear is your voice. Everything has to be done voice. Was it difficult to acclimate to that?
No, actually, I had dreamt it for so long that being allowed to do it, it was like an out of body experience for the first couple of weeks and this was back in the day when we played records, kids. Those are the things with the holes in the middle,
Yes,
made of vinyl, and vinyl's now made a comeback. Who knew?
it has. It's amazing. I still have some of my vinyl from the
Yeah,
old
me
days.
too. I never got rid of mine.
Yeah.
But back in those days, you could pretty much craft your own show. You had to play it was a top 40 station, so you had to play the current songs, if you
Over and
thought
over
I
and
hear
over
that
again.
song all the time, it's because we play it all the time. The top 40, the hot hits were every 2 hours. So, but
What
other
was it
than
like?
that,
Did you have audience, especially your beginnings, did you have the audience interaction? Had that been built in yet? Were you just so thrilled to be announcing on the radio? What was it that was exciting for you? Which part of it really was attractive to you?
actually, the putting the music together, the crafting of a show was the best thing for me, because I was the one that even before I got into radio, I'd go to a party and people would say, Erica, you do the music, because music. So it was just and now I can get paid for it.
Right. And so
But and then
what was the top 40 then? I mean, I know I'm going to date you, but I love it.
Well, actually, I just did a podcast. One of the series I do is called 70s Spotlight. And basically, I rip off Casey Kasem. I call it channeling my inner Casey Kasem.
Can we use that? I like it.
I did the second week in September 1979, which was a reflection of what was in the top 40 the week I started in the radio. And the number one song was My Sharona.
Love that song. How can you not? The Knack.
Yep. Pop Music by M, which I still detest to this day.
The one-hit wonder M.
Yeah.
Was it difficult? I've had a lot of people before who spin records. Is that what we call it? Back in the day, that's what we used to say. But they would have to figure out how to blockade the pop music, especially a song you didn't care for, because you still had to play it whether you liked it or not.
Right. You just turn the volume down. So the listeners are hearing it, but you don't have to.
So where'd you progress from there? Where did you go? You got your first job. You absolutely loved it. So you knew you were on the right path. And then what starts to happen?
Well, after about 2 years, the whole staff pretty much picked up one at a time and went to Panama City Beach, to a station over there called WPFM, the Great 108. And it was, up in the Panhandle, because it's so flat up there. 100,000 watt signal gets you into Alabama and out into the ocean. So, I mean, it's it paid. Oddly enough, a smaller market paid more. So the morning guy, the afternoon guy, me, the person that I called on FM 99, the first girl, she worked there. So I actually got to meet and get to know her, and we're Facebook friends. Hi, Ruth. And
was
then
it the dream? Did you find that you were fighting any kind of stereotypes back then, since women were just coming in, or were they just allowing you to be creative on your programming?
No, everybody wanted that token woman, and so I called myself EOE, Equal Opportunity Erica. I will take your job and I will run with it.
But you always have this positive energy. Was it just like that? You just continue to grow your career and your passion as you're fine-tuning your craft? Have you always been that positive spirit?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like most radio people and most entertainers, if you can call me an entertainer, suffer greatly from imposter syndrome, where you think, okay, they're letting me do this, but at some point somebody's going to notice that I don't know how to do this, and I'm just
Every
muddling
day on
through.
the TED Show, I understand how this works.
But see, you've got a huge following, and everybody loves you for your positivity. So
Thank you.
It's the same sort of thing. And Scott and I, when I got together with Scott in early 1991, there weren't a lot of listeners to the station, so we decided that we were just going to try to make each other laugh, and thus the show was born out of that. It's just trying to crack each other up, and it continued to build and build and build and build until we were big.
You were. So was it BJ 105 when you started?
No, actually, it had flipped to Mix the year 89. It became Mix. I got there in October of 1990 after 6.5 years in Jacksonville. Where
what was it like on a partner perspective? Because it's one thing when you get to control, right? You're doing your show, you got your voice, you have your voice for your community, but then when you bring somebody else in, you're sharing the spotlight, which I know isn't a big deal for you, but I feel like that is a different kind of relationship and a different kind of chemistry.
Well, the weird thing is, a gentleman that I worked with in Jacksonville, a legendary morning show man named Jack Diamond, once said, he says he didn't say it this harshly and he didn't mean it the way I took it, but he said something to the effect of, "You're wasting your talent. You should be doing mornings." Because I was just a regular jock telling stories and jokes and, opining about the musical artists and stuff like that. And I thought, I don't ever want to have to get up early in the morning. I'm a night person, My first shift, my first air shift was 6 to midnight. In Panama City, it was 7 to midnight. So I was always the night person, and the thought of getting up early in the morning did not appeal to me at all. But when I got to Orlando, I didn't have a job. I had been downsized in Jacksonville along with half the staff. And so I ended up here with a boy. And I figured
it's always about the boy.
Yeah, I could collect unemployment here as well as anywhere. And so once that ran out, I thought, well, I better find myself a gig. So I got a job at Metro Traffic, figuring, well, that's a way to get heard at least. So I was vacation fill-in on the traffic network. So I would do, whoever was on vacation, I would do their stations. And that was crazy. That was the most nerve-wracking, crazy job I've ever had. Because in radio,
what was it about it that was crazy? Because you're having to deal with up to the minute traffic updates and try to distinguish what city and what area you're talking about.
Well, there's that, and there's the noise. When you're on the radio, when you turn on the mic, everything else mutes. So it's just your voice in your headphones. With the traffic network, there's scanners going off. There's a person next to you doing their report for their station. It's chaos. It's the only thing that ever gave me hives. I'd find myself,
You're getting them now talking about it.
Yeah. But from that, I started getting offers for morning show jobs for, the news person or the sidekick. And I ended up trying out at Mix. The program director at the time, Brian Thomas, asked me to try out for a week with Alan Spector, who was the co-host at the time.
I remember.
And that week turned into 2 weeks, which turned into a month, which turned into a few months, which turned into Scott being hired, which turned into 20 years.
20, like you all had magic. That's my word. I'm sure you felt it too, but I feel like the two of you together, when that comes together, when there's a partnership that works like that, it's effortless on the magic. You're both, I just remember listening to you thinking, these are two people I want to hang out with. That was and you just were that down to earth, engaging, still loving, supportive, authentic, and still played music. Like the relationship was so symbiotic that I feel like it was magical.
Well, that's what was funny. We used to laugh that, we conned people into thinking we were doing a show, but that's just how that's just how we talk to each other.
Right.
If you were sitting behind us in a restaurant, you would hear the same exact thing, except for without the music. But that's just how we talked.
And then how did that progress? You all were together. How long did you do the show?
With Scott for 20 years.
Yes, so that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. So 20 years. That's almost unheard of in radio world. Do we still call it radio world? Because a lot of teams, like you've got the whole Howard Stern crew, they've been together since the dawn of time, but you don't have a lot of teams, you don't have a lot of partnerships and friendships and interactions that last that long, because the industry itself is a big turnover industry, and what's hot now isn't hot tomorrow. So what was that like? Why do you think you all were able to last that 20 years?
I think because, one, we never took ourselves very seriously. We both realized that we had the best jobs in the world, where we get paid to come to work and laugh and do fun stuff in the community and interview celebrities, and we're rewarded handsomely for it, I should say.
Yes.
I never took that for granted, or tried not to. Maybe once or twice I did when I was hungry.
Well, because you all, you still, in my mind, you all were you were celebrities in Central Florida. You guys, people know, when you say Scott and Erica, most people who are older than, I don't know, however old, 20, maybe, they're going to know, they're going to go, Scott and Erica, they were on Mix 105. Like, it's just, people know you all, and that's such a testament to the fact that you guys had a real relationship and that you put out so much positivity, I feel like, at a time where sometimes DJs, radio personalities, it wasn't all about being positive.
Right. Well, interestingly enough, we got guests that were meant for top 10 radio markets. But because some of the DJs in those markets were trying actively to get the guests to hang up on them, that they wanted to be nasty and mean, and we were a safe place for somebody to land.
Yes.
And so if agents and bookers were burned by some of these top 10 markets, they were like, oh, well, you just go on the Scott and Erica show. They'll let you do what you want to do. And so we had comics, we had singers, we had,
You were a safe place, and I think people underestimate the value of that. You were a place where they could be creative, they could still promote what they needed to promote, and it was a positive environment. You weren't trying to catch them in something or cut them down.
Right, exactly. And if somebody said, don't bring up this, we wouldn't. Why risk?
I'm the same way. Like, people will say, well, you can't talk about this, this, and this. I go, well, is it negative? Yes. Well, I don't wanna. That's for another show. Somebody else, trust me, wants to hear all that. I don't. I'm not about that. And you guys were so positive with everyone. And what happened? It ended, or it lasted 20 years.
Yeah, so
you all begin. Then you go your own way. What happens then?
Well, I think the nice term for it is I was fired.
I was going to let you say that, but I hate that word, but that's what happened, right? They went in a different direction.
I mean, it was a cost-cutting move. If you remember what was happening between 2008 and 2010, we had an economy that went in the tank, and businesses were not advertising as much.
And so then you have to did you reinvent yourself? Did you take a break? What was your when you parted ways? What did you do?
Well, Scott and I still kept in touch. We still went out and had lunch and would laugh for hours about everything.
It was
a couple of years after that, I took a job doing smooth jazz on the new WLOQ, which was run out of the Clear Channel building at the time. But yeah, I would only do it if I could have total control over music and programming in general, because I had
Was it
got to
hard
the
being
point in my
back on
career.
your own? Was it hard being back like as a solo? Did you have to adapt again?
Yes, it was a little tough. I I lost that callus, shall we say, of being a solo act. It took me a couple of weeks to get back in the hang of running things myself, and then after that kind of fizzled out, not through no fault of anyone's. But I ended up starting these podcasts a couple
Yeah.
of years
What's
ago.
that like for you? Tell me, because
Well,
podcasts don't have usually don't have like the call-ins like you're used to. So I imagine you're building your audience and you're speaking, but you're not getting any feedback necessarily. And that's one of the difficult challenges, I think, for people who are used to doing this kind of stuff where we interact, to go to a podcast where you don't.
Well, actually, what I'm doing is playing music. So my podcasts sound like the radio I originally was doing
I love
in
it.
the 70s and 80s as a regular solo disc jockey. Just playing. I do so many different things because it's so easy. It's like owning my own radio station, and I change the format every week. So
However you
I
want.
do I do series like Forgotten Hits, which are the songs you know all the words to, but you just don't hear on the radio anymore. I do Yacht Rock, which is the smooth rock of this from like 75 to 85. Boz Scaggs, Hall & Oates, Kenny Loggins, Steely Dan, that sort of stuff. I do the 70s Spotlight. I do solo artists. Like I just did a Rod Stewart show. My
No.
most popular show is my Sting show. That's been listened to well over 2,000 times. Kenny Rogers, Earth, Wind and
What's it
Fire,
like?
Little River Band.
Do you do research on them? Like,
Oh,
what's the process like? Because I think people go, "Oh, well, if Eric can do a podcast, I can do a podcast." But there's actual work and research work involved.
yes, there's research, and plus, I have stories from when I was backstage at certain concerts, or things that happened, or people that I've interviewed, or there. I have a Men of R&B show, and I put in a clip of when Lionel Richie was in the studio with me and Scott. So if you want to hear a little Scott and Erica and Lionel, it's the Men of R&B show on my site there.
What do you think your future? What do you want to do? You want to go national? Tell me about, because I think people they go, "Oh, she's got a podcast." Well, everyone has a podcast, but what do you like? Everybody's got a different vision for their podcast. What do you want to do?
Actually, I'm just happy with the way things are.
Love it.
I really am. I mean,
Love it.
according to Podomatic, I have way more going on than your average podcaster because I had a built-in audience that was ready to hear what I was doing. But there's light years between me and the big dogs that get, 1 million downloads a week. I get 600-700 a week, which, for what I'm doing at my dining room table, not bad.
I love that you're able to share and showcase your talent in the way that you want to, in a format that you love, and people still are engaging. I think people underestimate the value of podcasts. And so I love the fact that you get to storytell and get to, do what you want to do in a way that you've established. You've created it. Nobody said, "Erica, you have to do this, 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 and this." You've said, "This is what I want to do based on my experience, my knowledge, and my likes and dislikes." And so I love the fact that you get to you're creative, and continue to get to be creative.
Yeah, it's just a blast writing and producing these shows. And we mentioned off air, I just got a new laptop, so trying to edit with a new touchpad has been challenging, shall we say. It's taking me about twice as long. I had gotten pretty adept, but and it's a learning curve. I'll get there.
All right, you're amazing. I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of Erica, and of course, I'm a fan of Erica and Scott. But I just think you're amazing. I love what you do in the community. I love that you have continued to work your passion. So tell people, I've got the website scrolling across there. What's the best way if somebody wants to reach out to you, wants to learn more? And then you want to talk about Friends of Orange County Library, correct?
Yes. Well, as far as my podcast, you see how I spell my name with a C. Just pop Erica Lee's podcast into your favorite search engine, and like a zillion places that run my shows will pop up. So a lot of them have apps that you can download, and you can play them through your car speakers via Bluetooth, and it's just easy peasy. But yeah, I started working with the library when I was still at Nick's, doing some community outreach and stuff like that. When they would have Sesame Street in the house every year, I would go down there and have the little kids, you know, talk about how important reading is and getting a library card and that sort of thing. And they asked me to join the board of directors of the Friends of the Orange County Library in 2010. And so I've been on the board since. And basically, the Friends of the Library are the cheerleaders. We support the library's programs. The Friends is a nonprofit entity. So we raise funds to support staff outings, scholarships, certain programs. Now everything is via Zoom. And it was amazing how quickly the library transitioned to all of the programs that they had in person to just boom. Okay, now, okay, we'll do it. We'll do it virtually. No problem. Yeah.
So you haven't been to the library. They have an entire media floor. If you haven't been to the library in a long time, the one on Roslyn is the one that I know best. And there's that entire media floor where you can film podcasts and you can
the Melrose Center.
Yes, the Melrose Center. It's amazing.
It is.
And you get to utilize it as a card holder. I don't know why more people don't take advantage of that, but I love the library. I think it does so much for our community. And so I'm excited that you are part of it.
Well, we're having a fundraiser, if I could just plug that real quickly.
Please.
Coming up on, let's see, I wrote down, on November 13th, we're joining up with the amazing Curtis Earth, host of Earth Trivia. He's going to be doing a Zoom show, and people can make a donation, get their team together, and play Earth Trivia and benefit the Friends of the Library at the same time. You can just go to OCLS, Orange County Library System, OCLSfriends.info to get more information.
You're a joy, always. I appreciate it.
You are.
You are. You really are amazing. And I'm so thankful that you came on the show, and I'm so thankful for all that you do in our community. Our community is a better place because of you, and I mean that. So thank you.
Oh, shucks. Now you're making me blush.
All right. I'll have a cocktail later for that. Erica, you guys reach out to her. Her podcast address is going there, but just like she said, you can plug Erica Lee's podcast into any of your places where you listen, and you will find it. She's amazing. Thank you, Erica. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Ted. I had a blast.
We did it.
Yeah.
We did it. All right, guys. We'll see you back later. Reach out to Erica. She's amazing. You guys already